often folks like DeKalb decision makers will do these things because they think no one will say anything. Like, we're just going to put a bunch of sewage, a bunch of junk in a largely Black and brown areas waterways, and no one's going to say anything because it's Black and brown people. So I just really wanted to uplift that. Wait, why didn't it do it? Okay, here we go. And then I thought I would put in the quote that the Black Hall Studios CEO said. For folks on the phone, I'm just going to read this. During a recent tour of the studios, Ryan Millsap told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that most of the concerns are, quote, negative spin from people that are just fundamentally physically opposed to land exchanges, and that the land he is willing to trade has an equal, if not better, natural value. Yes, Agbo, literally. Because the thing about that is that, like, if it does in fact have this equal land value, then why would you not work with community to essentially do what you want to do? Because it sounds like what you want to do is knock down a bunch of trees, do all this stuff, and film and do whatever else without, people engaging with you, really. And so, like, it's just things like that really bother me, because you've got folks thinking, oh, Black and brown people don't care about the environment. Like, whatever, we're just gonna do that. And, like, that's the opposite of the truth. Several surveys show that Black and brown folks are very pro-environment. So, but that's a conversation for another day. I just wanted to show this quote just to show y'all that these developers, y'all, I tell you, they're a mess. Can I go to the next slide, please? Thank you. And then I feel bad for folks on the phone, but hopefully you can see my screen. I have a graphic of how the environment affects our health. I wanted to put this graphic here because often when we think about the ways that the environment affects our health, we think about cancer, which, yes, like, that is a large way that the environment affects our health. However, this amazing organization called Georgia Wand, they do economic justice and pro-environment justice, all the justice, really. They conducted, like, studies in Burke County. For folks unfamiliar with Burke County, that's the county that's right near Plant Vogtle. Plant Vogtle is Georgia's nuclear plant. So they conducted this research, and these are some of their findings. I'm just going to read off like 2 or 3 because I don't want to overwhelm y'all. But from what they found, death by respiratory diseases was up by about 38%. Death by circulatory diseases was up by 37.9%. Death by digestive diseases was up by 33%. And of course, I'm going to share this graphic so that way I don't have to, y'all don't have to wait on me to read it. But I really wanted to highlight these things. So when we think about environment, when we think about Black and brown people disproportionately affected by the environment, we are keeping in mind that this is also related to our health and to our overall wellness. So on par to health and wellness, I'm going to pass the mic to Allison to talk about, like, reproductive justice, reproductive health, and how these things kind of, like, tie together.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Gayla, and hello to everyone. Gayla, if you'll stop sharing your screen, I should be able to share mine.
Oh, sorry.
You're fine. Okay. Gonna take me 1 second. Okay, now I need to share. All right, let's see if this shares the correct screen. Can y'all see it?
Ooh, that's so cute.
Aw, thanks. I am not the gifted one, like, graphically, but I tried to put in pictures that I like, so hopefully it makes it look a little bit better. My slides can have a tendency to be word heavy. So as Gayla mentioned, I'm going to kind of shift the conversation over to reproductive justice, but also really try to speak to this intersection of reproductive justice and environmental justice. And so the first thing I wanted to talk about very briefly is just like, who am I and like, what is the work that Amplify Georgia does? So Amplify Georgia is a reproductive justice campaign that works to protect and expand abortion access in Georgia cities. We're made up of 7 wonderful organizations, which includes ARC Southeast, which is a local abortion fund, Feminist Women's Health Center, which provides reproductive health care, including abortion care, the National Asian Pacific American Women's Forum, yay, New Georgia Project, Sister Song, Spark, Reproductive Justice Now, and Urge. And so we work very closely with all these different organizations and in doing this campaign. We work in Atlanta, Clarkston, and South Fulton. So this conversation and what Gayla shared is very relevant to our work. And Amplify works for and with Black, Latinx, and Asian American Pacific Islander folks, LGBTQ+ community, immigrants, and refugees, and young people. And you may wonder, like, why is Amplify on this call? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about, why environmental justice is really essential to reproductive justice and why we can't continue to have siloed conversations about these different social justice areas. And just one more note about kind of what we do is we do advocacy work, establishing reproductive justice commissions. We had a wonderful celebration and establishment of Abortion Provider Appreciation Day in Atlanta. We do culture shift work to like destigmatize abortion and also to create conversations in different communities around abortion and reproductive justice. We do base building work and education work. All right, into the good stuff. So what is reproductive justice? So reproductive justice is the human right to maintain personal bodily autonomy, to have children, to not have children, and to parent the children we have in safe and sustainable communities. And the reproductive justice framework, the origins of it are really important because it came about in 1994 when a group of Black women got together in Chicago and basically convened to say the reproductive rights movement is not meeting our needs. You know, it's predominantly led by white middle-class women, and even globally, kind of the feminist movement reflecting this privilege of both of race and class, and saying that we need a framework that can encompass all of our needs and all of our community's needs, and one that is intersectional. So one that can hold the various identities that we bring to the table and address them in one, and not boil us down to one part of our reproductive health system, or only focus on choice. And we know that access is like, you can have choice without access is nothing. So that's where this came about from. And it really centers, it's really holistic. So it's not just about abortion. It's about being able to have children. And there's a very real important conversation around that and how communities of color, historically, there have been movements to prevent communities of color and low-income folks and mentally disabled folks from being able to bear children, the right to not have children, and this bigger concept of bodily autonomy. So we have the right to decide what happens to our bodies, like full stop. And I think that's really wonderful and important in thinking more holistically about what does it mean to control somebody's reproductive health and reproductive systems. It's really about controlling people's bodies. And then really important for this conversation is the fourth tenet on this slide, which is to parent the children we have in safe and sustainable communities. So you honestly, like our choice and our ability to make decisions is impacted by the environment in which we live. So I shouldn't have to make it as, I shouldn't have to fear for a potential child or an actual child's safety or health because I live in a certain area of town, or I know that there is lead in my water, or that it's not safe So these are things that weigh on and influence the decisions people make and the situations they find themselves in, and is really important to realizing reproductive justice. And I'm not sure if we gave a definition of environmental justice, but my understanding is like in a similar way, it came out of work that was predominantly led by white folks. I don't know if you want to give like a definition, Kayla. I have one written up, but I feel like this is very much your territory.
Oh, no, you go ahead. The whole purpose of this call is to bridge us.
I mean, like very like high level, what I was reading was, you know, it's work to reduce inequitable environmental burden. So like that people of color and all folks can both benefit from and are not overly burdened from the environment, so that it's like equitably distributed, and that all folks are involved in decision making and leadership around the environment, and that it recognizes different like cultural ways of life, local knowledge, cultural differences, and the way we approach environmental work. Very, high level. Yeah. But as I was reading that definition, it really resonated with me, and I saw a lot of similarities with reproductive justice. So the next slide just captures a little bit around like where I see a lot of the similarities of environmental justice and reproductive justice. So as I was mentioning, both frameworks center the most marginalized. So they came from, are led by people of color, especially Black folks and Indigenous folks. They're led by low-income folks, by LGBTQ+ communities, and often by women and other gender nonconforming folks and trans folks. And so it's really about making sure that these folks are like at the core of the work. And also both look at and address root causes. A lot of like, at least from the reproductive justice perspective, reproductive rights and health work often focus pretty exclusively on like individual level needs and individual level